Fist has some good ways of being able to absorb damage and deal even more base power outwards. However, we have got our leads between both of our trainers. Arath is going to be leading with the Dragon Eye and the Sneasler versus Ali's Annihilate and this Whimsicott, which I just need to call out, the Whimsicott does not have beat up, so it's not going to be trying to further bolster that Rage Fist.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call, actually. It's not that typical Whimsicott set you see with a Annihilate instead, but instead running that Tailwind Sunny Day Encore Moonblast here as well. So going for that Tailwind is definitely a good option here if you want to get that damage out immediately here.
Wow, here we go.
Speaking of damage, it's the final Gambit straight past that multi-scale.
Yeah, what's a multi-scale when you've got a final Gambit able to absolutely ignore any sort of abilities, moves, interactions. The whole sort of importance here is it directly affects the HP percentage. Dire Claw from Arath's Sneasler will be bringing the Whimsicott down to its Focus Sash, and no, I was going to say there's no additional status condition, but it seems to be the paralysis. So at least it wasn't the poison, but then again, there is that knock-on effect of the potential secondary paralysis that may or may not allow the Typhlosion to get further enabled.
So yeah, you see how we saw that Dragonite was the only resist to fire? Well, Ali very much identified that, got rid of it with Final Gambit, and now here is Typhlosion to do exactly what it wants to do. So it's very much a Sunny Day plus Eruption and see where things happen from there. Now you'll probably want to Terror this Typhlosion though, because you are facing down this King Gambit, which does have Sucker Punch, which most likely will take this Typhlosion down. So the question is, do you want to still lock into Eruption, because you still might be taken down by quite a lot of HP, or you might want to do a little bit more damage, assuming you get hit by Sucker Punch, and go for Heat Wave instead, which will still do a very decent amount of damage.
Yeah, and clearly Ali wanting to go on the offensive. I think this is the prime position to be able to do so. Question is, will there be a Sunny Day that will further enable more multipliers to stack up for ridiculous amount of damage, as the King Gambit wants to make sure if forward goes, it's Steel typing, at least in this situation, maybe survive if the Sunny Day does not get set up. There's no actual prankster priority. The Heat Wave does miss the King Gambit. Quite unfortunate for Ali in that scenario. Close combat wanting to make sure it covers any sort of switch-ins from Ali's side. Maybe Ali wanting to try to go for the double up of the Moonblast into what should be that Terror commit from the King Gambit and ensure KO, but quite unfortunate to be able to miss in that scenario. That's definitely not what you want to be able to see as the King Gambit, picks up the one-shot onto the Typhlosion, which, it no longer had its weakness to the Dark type via that Ghost typing. So what a way to be able to absolutely switch momentum completely on Ali's offensive setup.
Wow, okay, yeah, that was quite the turn there. So much to cover there, honestly. Yeah, obviously, Ali hoping for maybe more of a defensive play from his King Gambit, maybe a protect, and then, as you say, Costa doubling into that Sneasler to try and get that KO there. I don't know if it would have actually outsped the Sneasler, given the paralysis on the Whimsicott, to be fair. So the Sneasler was either way probably going to get off that attack, given the Focus Sash. But yeah, as you can see, Arath kind of maybe being a little bit scared of the Farigiraf potential switch in there and going for something a little bit more reliable in that Kowtow Cleave instead of that Sucker Punch. So a really good play to do that, but we don't know whether it would have actually survived if Ali had actually gone for that Sunny Day instead, boosting that damage up even higher, because this is not Saltfist King Gambit, this is just the black glasses, and it's got a little bit better defense rather than special defense, but obviously we don't know. Heat Wave does miss, and it did here. Yeah,
exactly, and at this point I think Ali's just having to try to buy a bit more time in order to evaluate their sort of strategy going into this game too. Is there a way to be able to not fall susceptible to so much more offensive damage coming up from the other side of the field and not have to rely on a Heat Wave in order to be able to force the board state more to your advantage? Because at this point, I'd say the Farigiraf, it's a great sort of bring to be able to maybe negate, I'd say, fake outs or even the Sucker Punches from the King Gambit, but you need to be able to have the Sunny Day set up beforehand, bring the Farigiraf in at the same time in order for you to just go ahead and potentially start deleting Pokemon over on Arath's side with so many multipliers at hand.
Yeah, okay, so a convincing win there from Arath there. So, just really well played, honestly, just kind of calling whether Farigiraf was going to come in, and, just maybe the Sunny Day wasn't going to go up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that was definitely the case, and it's quite difficult, because if you're Arath right now, David, what sort of I guess, play is it for you to be able to go ahead and say, okay, that game one went exceptionally well for myself, even though I lost the Dragon Knight from turn one, I was still able to rely on the King Gambit. Do you go for the same sort of strategy?
It's a good question, because the nature of Ali's team here is very, like, 100% or nothing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and you're weighing a lot on each turn as to what will happen. So, we saw it kind of all come to a head literally on that, like, second turn there.
Yeah.
Like, and where you've got more defensive like teams or players, like with what Arath has got there, you've got a lot more room to maneuver if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So, in theory, you know, if you suddenly hit that heat wave, or maybe you went for Sunny Day instead, it's looking like a completely different game.
Yeah.
Because Whimsicott goes down, Frigoroth comes in, Typhlosion's still in the sun, you've got Heat Wave that you can still spread across the rest of the team.
Yeah.
It could have well been like Rillaboom in the back or Electabuzz in the back, which wouldn't have been able to do much, and then suddenly the Balls and Ali's caught there. So it is really, really different depending on how a lot of those turns can go.
Yeah.
So in terms of your question as to what comes next, I think it's got to be up to Ali as to the expert of the team as to how he changes things up, but it looks like it's the same here.
Okay, and we do have the Sneasler and the Dragonite on Arath's side, so you got a scenario of either trying to go for the fake out into the Whimsicott, but you're going to have to read the sort of mind games of, is there going to be an early Terra Ghost potential from the Whimsicott, maybe for you to be able to respect the fake out of the Sneasler, but there's actually not going to be anything. It's just going to be an extreme speed straight into that slot, and Direclaw follow-up confirming that the Sneasler is indeed faster. The Whimsicott trying to go on the offensive, maybe even break the Focus Sash on that Sneasler to be able to capitalize and pick it off. It was such a menace in that game one, and all of a sudden, it's such an awkward spot because you have lost your main enabler, I would say, in terms of the Tailwind mode, but the Farigiraf might actually allude to a secondary mode that Ali may have brought.
Yeah, I like that point there, Costa, honestly, because yeah, if you've got the Farigiraf there, yes, it was the same Pokemon that was brought in the last game as well. But yeah, if your Tailwind is denied at this point, you might want to hope at least that you've got Ursaluna in the back instead that you can set up Trick Room for.
Yeah.
Arath might be kind of prepared for this, but here we go. Direclaw first of all. Is there a status? Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a paralysis, which means there is a chance that the Farigiraf may actually not be able to get a move off, and confirmation, of course, the Annihilate. They do tend to be very speedy with the final Gambit in order to be able to get the jump off of any sort of Dragonites that are not able to outspeed it, and absolutely deletes it from that slot. Farigiraf does unleash the Trick Room, which it's gonna have to suggest, David, we're gonna be seeing that Ursaluna Blood Moon.
We certainly are, yeah. The skies are going to darken very soon. But King Gambit here is looking pretty good in this matchup, actually, at the moment. Especially if we go for that Dark Terror again, removing that Steel type and making it so that it can at least take on an Earth power from this Ursaluna. Yeah. However, it is Life Orb. It's Terra Normal as well. We've still not seen that Terra yet. So Terra Normal Life Orb Blood Moon surely has to be enough to pick up a one-hit KO on a King Gambit that has Terra'd. So it's still a lot to play for here for Ali here, even though he's down a Pokemon at this point. So we'll see how it kind of plays out. Sneasler pivoting out here. Maybe Arath trying to maybe slow things down with this Trick Room mode. Yeah, it's going to be quite awkward because at least some of these Blood Moon Ursalunas, when they're ran in the Tail Room compositions, they tend to be a bit faster, and the King Gambit of the composition that Arath run tend to not have a lot of speed invested. So there's going to be a potential chance for the King Gambit to actually underspeed the Blood Moon Ursaluna, as we've actually got a reveal of the Terra Fairy being unleashed, and the Pokemon Terra Choice followed by the King Gambit. At least with that interaction between the Farigiraf and the King Gambit, we know the Farigiraf is going to be moving first under Trick Room conditions. Certainly do. So Terra Dark on this King Gambit, which we've seen before, one hit KO just with a count-out cleave onto a non-super effective hit onto a Typhlosion. But first, there is that Psychic. Okay, that makes so much sense. You're going to be able to at least get some good damage. Reliable on the other side of the slot, but the count-out cleave does come out first before the Blood Moon Ursaluna because of the Terra Fairy. Of course, the Farigiraf is going to be able to survive, but the Blood Moon is going to be focusing down on the King Gambit. It picks up the KO, is finally able to get that read. Ali has more momentum now on the field. Getting that read is so crucial because you're either going to have to lock into the Earth power in that slot or commit with the Blood Moon. It's sort of that point, David, where you feel, okay, is it a bit too obvious that I don't try to go for that read? I just stick
with the Earth Power, but no, Ali got that read so on point, which forces an awkward scenario for the Rillaboom, which surely will not be able to underspeed both Ali's Pokemon as well as get any priority Grass Glides off because of the Farigiraf being on the field.
Yes, exactly. So it can't like snipe anything really quickly at the moment. The Farigiraf is locking everything down here. It makes sense. You want to protect your Ursaluna, try and get that Blood Moon turned back that you can't use consecutively.
Yeah, exactly. Psychic will mean that Sneasler has been knocked out. Rillaboom has been left on its own, but there is a good chance that the Rillaboom might actually just target the Farigiraf here in order to be able to pick up a KO, but no, it is definitely gonna be into the Ursaluna slot. It has been identified from Arath to be the main threat, so well played of a defensive switch up there, and full momentum swing from Ali's side.
Yeah, it definitely was there, and I think we've got 2 more turns of Trick Room left as well. So it's looking pretty safe for this Ursaluna to do what it needs to do, especially into a Rillaboom that cannot protect.
Yeah, and Psychic will be bringing the Rillaboom down to half its HP, escorted by the one, the only, Blood Moon KO, forcing this to a Game 3. You can see how much this means to Ali.
It certainly can, yeah. Like, again, such a quick game, given the nature of Ali's team here. Like, it's Tailwind and go, Trick Room and go, and you just gotta hit all your moves. And that is what Ali did this time, and seems like what he's been doing all of today, given the fact he is undefeated.
Yeah, exactly that, but up against a very informed Arath there, and clearly, that's sort of the beauty of having these sort of tail room compositions. You want to try to like flip in terms of which mode to try to prioritize on, but at the same time, you've got the benefit, if you're going to lead the Whimsicott, to choose which mode to go to, because that's the really key thing about how you train your, for example, Blood Moon or Ursaluna. Do they have enough speed to be able to capitalize off of a Tailwind setup, but also still be slow enough to take advantage of Trick Room?
Yeah, exactly. So we don't know exactly how many speed there is there. But typically you kind of want your Ursaluna to be able to outspeed some of the common threats that kind of hit around the mark of like max speed, Archaladon for instance.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get an Earth Power on that, for instance, or get out a Hyper Voice and be slow enough obviously to kind of underspeed some of the threats like Incineroar and Rillaboom that often don't run a lot of speed anyway. So it could be around that sort of point. But obviously heading into Game 3 here, like what is the play here at the moment? And again, I do not know. And it looks like a Farigiraf switch up for Ali. Yeah,
clearly Ali, a big fan of that Trick Room mode, just leading with the Giraffe at this point, saying, right, I want to at least ensure that I can force a scenario, get Trick Room set up from the get-go a bit more quicker to be able to start sweeping a bit faster. But Arath does have still options to be able to reduce the amount of damage Final Gambit can deal.
Yes, you definitely do, and that is the question. Does the Annihilate actually outspeed the Dragonite or not? We've not yet seen that ability, I don't think, as whether it kind of gets into that position. So you've got a Taunt that can kind of not really do a whole lot here at the moment. Close Combat isn't doing a whole lot either, so it's mainly the Final Gambit that is the main threat that Ali can really provide.
Yeah, we're gonna for the first time see the Dragonite go on the defensive here. In Game 1 and Game 2, there were no protects. Seems like Game 3 is the one to be able to ensure it. Dire Claw will be going into Farigiraf, so I'm expecting the Final Gambit into the Dragonite, but no, actually Ali going on the read effort of breaking the Focus Sash on the Sneasler, which means that it's now susceptible to that Psychic.
Yeah, a really good point, actually. You've broken that Focus Sash, so you're suddenly offering so much more offensive pressure here, even if Trick Room doesn't even go up at the moment. But you've got to think, though, if Farigiraf is here in the lead, you've got to expect Ursaluna to be in the back here. Ali was confident that worked for Game 2, so surely it will probably work for Game 3 here, especially if you kind of switch things up a little bit and put it in the lead instead as well, so you can absolutely go for it. And yeah, barring any Dire Claw shenanigans, I don't know what to say too much. Trick Room is not easy to stop here if you're Arath.
No, but we're actually going to see the immediate switching of the Incineroar that's now been revealed to be brought in Game 3, reducing the attack output of both the Sneasler and the Dragonite, but most crucially, wanting to try to get that subsequent Fake Out available. The Dragonite tried to go for the double protect in order to survive against that Final Gambit, which did not come out. The paralysis yet again being dealt onto the Farigiraf, but for Ali's sake, has been able to get that Trick Room set up.
Yeah, I think it's been 3 for 3 paralyses on Dire Claw. This is pretty funny, honestly.
Wow.
But yeah, Ali's still getting lucky though that they have not been getting fully paralyzed on the turns that it matters either. So yeah, a really nice position now. Incineroar also in, and also catching a double protect attempt on Dragonite, meaning it's just been doing nothing for 2 turns.
Yeah, but then again, it's sort of at a point where it's probably not going to get KO'd to a double up from the Farigiraf and the Incineroar, so it could openly go for that scale shot at this point, as the King Gambit's going to be switched in here. So Ali going to have to see if they've committed to that read of the King Gambit being brought in.
He was pointing, I think.
Yeah, was it? Oh, well, there it is.
There we go.
Flare Blitz, not enough to pick up the KO. 10 hit point survival there, which is so key, especially because King Gambit is so vital against this Trick Room setup. The scale shot, on the other hand, getting a second critical hit at that point, going into just a total of 4, not picking up a KO, but the Farigiraf, even though there's a chance for it to get fully paralyzed, because it's paralyzed now, it's had its speed reduced by half, which is what we saw in Game 2, and allowed it to underspeed the King Gambit.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually, because King Gambit does, I think, naturally underspeed the Farigiraf as well. So yeah, as you see, it's just a really reliable Psychic.
Yeah, and deals so much damage, but wait, the Counter Cleave comes out. That's either going to be a Trick Room or a potential speed tie interaction between them, even after the paralysis. I'm not actually quite sure what that was, but I'll tell you what, that was yet another KO onto the King Gambit, and there's not even a Blood Moon Ursaluna that's been revealed as of yet, and the Trick Room mode is paying dividends for Ali's side, as Scale Shot will now successfully connect onto the Incineroar. This is an Assault Vest variant. It does not have a Citrus Berry for recovery straight after these hits. However, it's still going to be able to hang in there quite nicely.
Yeah, it is, and that's what you want when you're Incineroar, because then you can go back out, and then you can come back in, and then you can Binding Shot, and you can fake out, and you can go back out, and you can come back in, and you can fake out, and you all know the drill at home as well. But yeah, so Rillaboom is here though, but without that Farigiraf for Ali, this Ursaluna is a little bit more open for any sort of fake outs and grassy glides as well. So even though it's been Arath on the back foot here, we're still 3-3. Incineroar's really low on health, and this Ursaluna is a little bit threatened at the moment. It's probably going to be forced to Terra at this point as well to try and deal with this Rillaboom. But first of all, Arath has the fake out pressure to slow down this Trick Room a little bit more and potentially switch out this Dragonite, getting Sneasler, or kind of protect that as well. You've got a lot of options to still try and slow things down.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Farigiraf is such a key piece when it comes to the Trick Room oppression in order to be able to forego those priority moves that clearly are the key to be able to slow down Trick Room turns, as the Terra Normal will be coming out from the Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's a good way to be able to resist any sort, or should I say, allow there not to be super effective grass type move going into that slot, but followed suit by the Rillaboom. Terrifier means it's forcing Ali to try to make a read and maybe either go for the knockoff with that Incineroar or just commit with that Flare Blitz. But no, the knockoff is going to be safe and soundly into the Dragonite, which does not go for the Protect, leaving Arath now down to his final 2 Pokemon. However, Trick Room turns are now running out very swiftly, although Sneasler does still have the advantage in terms of speed tiering outside of Trick Room.
Yes, that's true. And then, unusually, this Sneasler is not carrying Protect, which seems like a lot of Sneasler do now run at the moment. But there is another fake out. But yeah, you need to fake out something at this point. It's probably going to be the Ursaluna, and that frees up the Incineroar to go on the offensive at the moment. And that can still do a lot of damage here. We've seen the Flare Bits, we've seen the knockoff, and that is likely enough to kind of pick up the Sneasler. So either way, it's looking really good for Ali.
Yeah, it's going to be dicey as well. Flare Blitz is enough to pick up the KO. The Sneasler it is! And that does put Ali so ahead right now. You can see how happy and excited they are. They have got 3 Pokemon versus 1. The Trick Room will now have actually been expired, but we're going to have to see the high horsepower miss into the Incineroar. But the fact that you've got so much resource still available at your slot, you've been able to absolutely capitalize, even if the Ursaluna hasn't even moved onto Trick Room.
Yeah, so it's still looking really strong. Ursaluna Blood Moon has so much physical bulk there as well, so I don't even know if a critical hit would still be enough to get rid of this Ursaluna. And then you still have the Incineroar to contend with, so there's the big hammer. It's a lot of damage, but it's not enough. Not
enough, as we're going to have to see the Blood Moon, Terra Normal, Life Orb boosted, unleashed onto Rillaboom, letting Ali Dakik go straight through to day 2.
Fantastically done from Ali Dakik there. like just putting on all the offense in that Ursaluna, just identifying in this meta what is strong. Well, Eruption's strong with Sun, and Ursaluna Blood Moon is just an amazing Pokemon with that amazing attack.
Yep.
And I'm just going to put everything around it to support doing exactly that, and you can see how powerful that was. Congratulations to Ali.
Yeah, huge congratulations. Of course, commiserations to Arath, but that doesn't mean that they're out for the count. They still have a good opportunity to be able to make their way through to Phase 2. And yeah, what a back and forth pendulum between both of these trainers. It just feels like Arath had that advantage going into the game one, being able to absolutely get rid of that Hisuian Typhlosion mode, and Ali just wanted to adapt, going for the Trick Room, which really paid dividends for themselves in Game 2 and 3.
Yeah, it certainly did, and they're already doing incredibly well at the moment. I think Ali had got a top 128 at LAIC last year as well, being one of their most